A proud prince mocks a peasant girl for fearing his wild stallion, until she tames the beast with just a whisper, shattering his arrogance and changing Lady Elizabeth's fate forever. What happens when a moment of cruelty reveals the true nobility hiding beneath a humble dress, and the hollowness lurking behind a royal title? Lady Rose stood tall by the big stone steps of Fairview Hall. She wore her best blue dress with tiny pearls sewn on the front. Today was the day she would meet the son of Lord Grey, who her father hoped she would marry. The sun was warm on her face as she watched dust rise from the road. A coach pulled by 4 brown horses came into view. "Stand up straight," her mother whispered. "Remember all we taught you." Rose took a deep breath. She had spent years learning how to be a perfect lady. She knew which spoon to use at dinner and how to dance without stepping on toes. Her future was set out like a map. Marry well, have children, and make her family proud. The coach stopped. A tall young man with golden hair stepped out. This was Henry Grey, her possible husband. He smiled, but Rose saw his eyes were cold like a winter lake. "Lady Rose," he said with a bow. "Your beauty is as great as they claim." "You are kind, sir," she said, dropping into a perfect curtsy. The day went as planned. They walked in the garden. They drank tea. Henry spoke of his travels and his horses. Rose smiled and nodded at all the right times. That evening, a party was held in the Great Hall. 50 people from the best families came to see Rose and Henry together. Candles lit the room, making the silver plates shine like mirrors. "May I have this dance?" Henry asked, holding out his hand. As they moved across the floor, Rose felt all eyes on them. This was her moment to shine. "You dance well," Henry said. "But I hear your cousin is more skilled at the piano. Might I ask her to play for us?" "Of course," Rose said, though a small worry grew in her chest. Emma, Rose's pretty young cousin, sat at the piano. Her fingers flew over the keys like birds. The room fell quiet as the sweet music filled the air. "Wonderful," Henry said, clapping hard when Emma finished. He turned to Rose. "And what skills do you have, my lady?" I read well," Rose said. "And I can sew." Henry laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Reading and sewing? Every girl can do those things. I had hoped for a wife with real talents." The room grew quiet. People turned to look. Rose felt her face burn hot. "Perhaps," Henry said loudly, "I should speak to your father about your cousin instead." Rose stood frozen as whispers spread through the room like fire. Her perfect future cracked like ice in spring. "Excuse me," she said softly, then walked, not ran, from the hall. She kept her head high until she reached her room. Only then did she let tears fall. That night, Rose wrote a letter to her aunt who lived by the sea. Aunt Jane was not like other ladies. She had strange ideas and lived alone by choice. Rose had always been a little scared of her, but now she seemed like the only safe place to go. As the first light of dawn touched her window, Rose packed a small bag. Her life as she knew it was over. But maybe, just maybe, a new one could begin. Aunt Jane's small house sat on a cliff by the sea. The wind sang through the tall grass, and waves crashed on rocks below. Inside, books filled every space. They lined the walls and sat in piles on tables and chairs. Rose had never seen so many books in one place. "People will talk," Aunt Jane said as she poured tea. "Let them. Talk fades like the tide." Days passed. Rose spent hours reading books about stars and plants and far-off lands. She learned more in those quiet weeks than in all her years of proper schooling. At night, she fell asleep to the sound of waves, not thinking about Henry Grey or the life she left behind. One morning, Aunt Jane placed a letter on the table. "Mrs. Miller is having a small party. You should go." Rose shook her head. "I can't face people yet." "Hiding won't heal you," Aunt Jane said. "Besides, Mrs. Miller's friends are not like the people you knew. They care more about what you think than what you wear." The party was held in a room with wide windows facing the sea. 10 people stood in small groups, talking about books and ideas. No one whispered when Rose walked in. No one seemed to care about her past. "You must be Jane's niece," said a woman with gray hair. "I'm Mrs. Miller. Come meet our guest from Spain, Mr. Leon Torres. He studies birds." Mr. Torres had dark eyes and a kind smile. "Lady Rose," he said with a small bow. "Your aunt speaks highly of your quick mind." Rose felt her face grow warm. No one had ever praised her mind before. "Do you like birds, Lady Rose?" he asked. "I'm learning," she said. "I've been reading about the ones that live by the sea." "Wonderful. Would you like to join me tomorrow? I plan to watch the gulls near the big rocks. The next day, Rose and Mr. Torres sat on a blanket on the sand. He showed her how to use a small brass looking glass to see birds up close. They talked about flight and feathers and the way birds know where to go without a map. In my country, he said, we believe birds carry messages from the gods. What message do you think they have for me? Rose asked. Mr. Torres smiled. That you are free to fly wherever you wish. More days passed. Rose met Mr. Torres at the old church to see the birds that nested in the tower. They walked to the small town library where he showed her maps of bird paths across the world. At the public garden, they sat for hours naming the birds that came to the pond. Each time they met, Rose felt less like the girl who was shamed at a dance and more like someone new, someone with thoughts that mattered. You seem happier, Aunt Jane said one night as they sat by the fire. I feel like I'm waking up, Rose said. All my life, I tried to be what others wanted. I never asked what I wanted. And what do you want, dear one? Rose looked into the flames. To learn. To see new things. To be with people who care about what I say, not just how I look. Aunt Jane smiled. Then you've already found more than most people ever do. That night, Rose wrote in her diary about birds and freedom and a man with kind eyes who listened when she spoke. For the first time since she left home, she felt her heart begin to heal. Summer faded into fall. The sea turned gray, and cool winds blew across the cliffs. Rose and Mr. Torres, Leon, as she now called him, walked along the beach almost every day. They talked about books and birds and dreams. My father asks when I will come home, Rose said one day, holding a letter in her hand. And what will you tell him? Leon asked. Rose looked out at the wide sea. I don't know. He says Henry Gray has asked about me again. His first choice of wife said no. I see, Leon said, his voice soft. And is that what you want? To go back to your old life? Rose closed her eyes. 6 months ago, she would have said yes without thinking. A good match was all she had ever wanted, or thought she wanted. I'm not the same girl who left home, she said. That night, Rose sat by her window, watching stars appear one by one. Two paths lay before her, return home to the life she was born to, or step into something new and strange. Both scared her, but in different ways. A week later, a big black coach rolled up to Aunt Jane's house. Rose's father stepped out, his face stern as stone. You've been away long enough, he said when Rose met him at the door. It's time to come home. Henry Gray has agreed to give you another chance. Another chance? Rose asked. As if I did something wrong? Don't be difficult, her father said. You know how lucky you are. Most girls who face such shame never find a good match again. Rose felt her hands shake. And if I don't want to marry him? Her father's eyes grew wide. Don't be silly. Of course you do. The next day, Henry Gray himself came to call. He looked the same, tall and handsome with cold eyes. Lady Rose, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You look well. Country air seems to suit you. Thank you, Rose said. I've been happy here. Well, that's good, Henry said. But it's time to end this little break from real life. I've decided to be kind about your past mistake. My mistake? Rose asked. Running away, Henry said. It was childish. But I'm willing to forget it. Rose felt something rise up inside her, not fear, but fire. I didn't make a mistake. You shamed me in front of everyone. I merely spoke the truth, Henry said. A wife should have skills worth showing. And do you think I have no skills now? I'm sure you've learned your lesson. Rose looked at this man, this small, mean man who thought he was being kind by offering her a second chance. I have learned many lessons, she said. I've learned that I love to study birds. I've learned that I can think for myself. And I've learned that I would rather live in a small house by the sea with a kind man than in a big house with a cruel one. Henry's face turned red. You'll regret this. No one will want you now. Rose smiled. Someone already does. Someone who loved my mind before he loved my face. After Henry left, Rose ran to the cliff where Leon stood watching birds. When he saw her, his face lit up like the sun. I've made my choice, she said, breathless from running. And what have you chosen? He asked. Rose took his hands in hers. I choose a new path. I choose you. Rose and Leon got married in Aunt Jane's garden. Only 10 people stood among the late fall flowers to watch. Rose wore a simple white dress with tiny shells sewn along the hem. No big church, no 50 guests, no fine music. Just the sound of the sea below and birds singing in the trees. I, Rose, take you, Leon, as my husband, she said, her voice clear and sure. When they kissed, Aunt Jane wiped away a tear. Now that, she whispered, is what love looks like. 2 weeks later, Rose stood at the rail of a ship, watching England fade into the fog. Leon stood beside her, his arm warm around her waist. Are you scared? He asked. A little, Rose said. But it's a good kind of scared. Spain was not what Rose had thought it would be. Leon's home sat on a hill above a small town. White walls, red roof, blue doors. A garden grew all around it, full of plants Rose had never seen. The air smelled of salt and spice and flowers. It's not as big as your father's house, Leon said. Rose smiled. It's perfect. Days filled with new things. Rose learned to speak Spanish, one word at a time. She learned to cook food with red peppers and rich oil. She helped Leon study birds, writing down what they saw each day in a big book. The town people were kind. They didn't care that Rose was the daughter of a rich man from England. They only cared that she tried to speak their words and smiled when they spoke to her. You are learning fast, said Mrs. Torres, Leon's mother, as she showed Rose how to make sweet bread. Faster than Leon learned English. I want to fit in here, Rose said. This is my home now. Mrs. Torres patted her hand. You already fit, my dear. You have an open heart. 6 months after the wedding, Rose sat in the garden, painting a picture of a red bird Leon had shown her that morning. Her paints, sent by Aunt Jane, spread across the table in tiny pots of color. Look at you, Leon said, coming up behind her. An artist now, too. Rose looked at her work. The bird wasn't perfect, but it was good. 6 months ago, she didn't know she could paint at all. I got a letter from my mother, she said. Henry Grey is getting married to a duke's daughter. Mother says I should feel sad about what I lost. And do you? Leon asked, sitting beside her. Rose looked around at her new life. The little house on the hill. The garden full of life. The town below where she now had friends. The man beside her who loved her mind as much as her heart. No, she said. I feel lucky. What seemed like the worst day of my life led me here, to the best days I've ever known. Leon took her hand in his. Sometimes we have to lose the path others set for us to find the one that's truly ours. Rose nodded. A red bird, just like the one in her painting, landed on the garden wall. It looked at them for a long moment, then spread its wings and flew free against the wide blue sky. Just as Rose had learned it to do.